Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talking with a Dad, episode 14, Steve! The sponsors.
I want to thank truly and honestly the UFC for sponsoring this video. You fucking bastards.
Finally, they're paying us to talk about their shit.
You better cut us a check.
Oddly enough, we're not talking about the UFC at all tonight. Well, that's tentative. Tentative.
Hold on for 1 second. Listen, I just want a yay or nay or this. Actually, I can't do yay or nay. Give me your top 2 UFC analysts on YouTube. Go.
I don't watch any of them.
You don't watch any of them?
Zero.
I watch
zero.
I would suggest you start watching Luke Thomas.
I've heard of Luke Thomas because he does that podcast with Shab.
He is, and that makes him a saint for having to deal with that walking moron. Shab, I respect you. Don't come to my house. But Luke Thomas is by far my favorite. Ariel Helwani, however, I was just watching. I was watching an old interview when he finally got to interview Gina Carano after years of not interviewing her, and it kind of tracks their relationship throughout his career. And I forgot that he was on Yahoo at one point, and I'm talking about like early.com doing stuff. Man, can you imagine that? His first UFC event, he was standing outside because they wouldn't let him in.
Good for him, man. That man hustles for sure. You kind of gotta respect Helwani. He's he's hated by the UFC for sure, right? The UFC does not like
by Dana.
By Dana, there you go, Dana. It's not the UFC. If Dana leaves, they're bringing Helwani in as like a press guy for sure.
Cue Dana saying, "I am the UFC." All the coke comes out.
All right, we're good to go.
You know, you can't be around flashing lights and stuff.
Probably from all of the cocaine.
No, it's from the condition he has. I feel bad for him. I make fun of him all the time.
Is it epilepsy?
No, it's something more exotic than that. But
bald man disease.
You're right. Dana dislikes Ariel Helwani strongly. Let's talk about historically what happened there, right? So they went to Fox Sports. Ariel joins them. I thought he was great as their kind of in the field type of guy. I like the whole setup they had with that.
Yeah.
But he was still doing the MMA hour. And so he was under obligation to himself, basically, to break every story he heard. But he always made sure to say, this is not a source that I obtained while doing a Fox Sports interview. This is from my private source stats. And he broke some story.
There's private hustling.
Yeah. And Dana White was absolutely red tomato over it. You know, when he gets that look where like his neck swells up and his head gets really red, he was pissed. So they kicked him out and they said he couldn't come back. And there was a public outcry. They said, you got to get back in here. And then he left again. And then he went over to ESPN. And some might say almost in a prophetic way, he went over before the whole thing.
He did. Him and Chael went over.
Chael, Gilbert, and Ariel, and they were waiting for the UFC when they showed up.
Was Bisping after? Because Bisping technically works for ESPN now, right?
He works for the UFC. He's a commentator for the
UFC. Okay, and then he's on their shows.
Yes, and they've taken care. They gave him the new version of the retired champion deal, which is you get to become. Well, he was a good. Bisping has always been a good commentator.
Yeah, he's really good. He's smart. That's why.
He's very smart. But it was. I thought you would find that interesting watching Ariel's interviews with Gina Carano. Also him. Gina Carano. You said I don't even know where you got that last name. You just picked one out of a bucket. Also, by the way, G Fuel sponsored. Zach, that is Zach's 16th can of G Fuel within the last 5 minutes. He's not looking good right now.
That's true. That's true. Before we get off the UFC talk, because it's probably going to end fairly quickly, we got some really good topics this evening for the show. Did you see Chase Hooper trolling Jorge Masvidal?
No.
You didn't see this clip? So, obviously, Chase Hooper is a fighter in the UFC. Very, very young. Actually, younger than I am, I believe. And he's interviewing for the UFC Jorge Masvidal. He was at the press conference to announce that he has some sort of like tequila endorsement or something now. And he says to him, because there's a meme going around on Twitter that Ben Askren's his dad, because they both have curly hair. They both fight at the same camp. And he's like, hey, George, why did you do that to my dad? And he's like, wait a second. And then Jorge Masvidal was like, hold on a second. Who's your dad? He goes, Ben Askren. He goes, oh my God, dude, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to. Because I was just kidding. He like Masvidal for some reason just had like remorse. He like turned pale. It was one of the funnier things I've seen come out of UFC Twitter recently.
Well, I mean, Masvidal's not a bad guy, right? He's just,
I don't know. I don't know him personally, so I can't speak as to if he's a good guy or a bad guy.
I think he'd be pretty intense to play video games with, right? Remember that clip I sent you of him playing
Call of Duty?
I would
destroy him. Let's be fair.
You would destroy him, and then he'd show up to your house like, hey, what's up, man? It's me. Just let me in. Like, no, Jorge, I'm not letting you in, man.
Again, this is 10 times this week. Stop flying here. Stop flying to Toronto.
You know who I miss, man? While we're doing some UFC chatter, my boy Yoel, man. Every now and then when I get a little scared at night, I like to think that Yoel Romero's outside my house protecting my property.
Well, good thing he's coming back in March. His fight was just announced with Adesanya.
It is.
That's crazy. He's lost, what, 2 in a row?
Has it been 2 in a row?
Whitaker 2, Paulo Costa. Now he's getting a title shot again.
Yes.
Jose Aldo lost one in bantamweight, right?
Right.
And is going to get a title shot. It's crazy. I saw a tweet that they were like, you know what Conor needs to do? He needs to go out there and lose to Cowboy, and he's guaranteed a title shot.
100%.
That's what I think.
I got a lot of feelings, and that I mean
you usually
feelings.
do.
I mean,
you usually do
about like your generation millennial feelings. I'm feeling things about this fight. I did not watch. I did watch the countdown. I haven't watched any of the embeddeds. I've heard peripherally about Conor's training camp, and Donald's camp is pretty much always the same. He has the same team around him and he does the same things pretty much. But I don't know why I'm not more excited for this, right? Because there's nothing on the line.
But that's the reason. This fight isn't. It is, but it doesn't implicate anything going forward. Conor hasn't won in the UFC since 2016. Cowboy is not in champion.
Was that the last fight against Eddie Alvarez?
2016, November of 2016.
Holy smokes.
It's 3.5 years. Cowboy's not in championship form, right? Cowboy's still good on any given night, but he's not going to beat Usman. He's not going to go back down to 55 and beat Khabib. He's not going to do any of those things, right? It doesn't matter if Conor wins, what does he do? Who cares, right?
Well,
if you've won once in 4 years, ask Nate Diaz. He just went out and got a money fight. That's all Conor's going to be able to do. Well, that's all Conor should be able to do. But he's such a big draw. He's either going to get Jorge Masvidal if he wants and get destroyed, or if he fight for it enough, he's going to get a winner of Khabib or Tony fight.
So let's downsize Jorge Masvidal because it's starting to get it's starting to get a little crazy, right?
I agree.
I want people to remember, and you know what? I got a lot of respect for Jorge. I love his boxing. I love his jiu-jitsu. His jiu-jitsu is amazing. You hardly ever get to see it, but he actually is a legit roller. But let's remember who we're talking about here. And I want to respect the resurgence. I do think he would definitely spank Conor, but I don't think the fight would be so lopsided to the point where it'd be embarrassing, especially if it's a stand-up affair. Because I can show you some Jorge fights recently too, where there's still some holes in Jorge's games where he gets touched. The only problem is he hasn't been touched by anybody with power. So here's what we know about Conor at 170. Just let me get this point out, right? Conor's punch at 170 translates very well. He knocked Nate Diaz down.
He's one of very few people to do so.
4 times in that second fight, right? I think that my only worry here, and I think we talked about this ad nauseum with this Cowboy and Conor fight, is Cowboy says he's going to stand with him. You and I both know if he gets touched to the face or he gets hit in the body, and Cowboy has a very bad reaction to body shots, leg kicks or kicks or otherwise, he's shooting for a takedown. Mark my words. It's not when he shoots. It's not if, it's when. We're going to be watching this fight in my house. It's going to be that should be the drinking game. When does Cowboys shoot?
No more drinking games with you.
Listen, that cop was dead when we got there. That's the story. We can stick to it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
I'm trying to get excited about some other stuff. What else we got on that card? Is it Holly Holmes versus Raquel Pennington?
Yes. That's Olenek for. There's no one else on the. Apparently, Anthony Pettis is fighting on this card.
Yeah, man, this is probably his last fight in the UFC. He's going to be going to Bellator soon. Mark my words. Holly Holmes will probably retire.
Macy Barber is fighting at the end of the prelims. Dude, this is a really bad card.
Yeah,
this is a card that's not worth the $70 that they're charging for cards now, or $65, whatever it is. It is not worth it.
I have all these stringent rules about supporting the sport and the athlete.
No. I'm not saying I wouldn't pay for it. I'm not saying we should illegally stream it and I can provide you links. I'm saying that even though we're going to pay the 60 whatever dollars, I mean, you are, it's not actually worth it.
No, it's not.
We got Alexei Olenek versus we get a guy who's 57-13-1 versus Maurice Green who's 8-3-0. I don't care. I don't even know who Brian Keller is. I don't care.
I didn't realize that it was this bad. I had purposely not looked at it. Canceled.
It is bad. That was a fight that was somewhat exciting. Canceled.
Oh, Roxanne. Oh, Macy Barber. Yeah. Andre Phil.
Right.
Sadiq Youssef is a up and comer. I enjoy his fights, but oh man, this is
a bad card. This is a bad first pay-per-view for the UFC this year too.
How much do they want for this card?
As much as they could get. I think it's $64.99 now. They bumped the price up.
Dude, look at the people who are on the main event.
I know a handful of them. Actually, I know way more than I don't know, but it's not a good card. This is not a good card. You're gonna sell out. Someone said to me that they thought they were gonna do 1 million buys on this pay-per-view, and I said I think it's gonna be hard for it to get over 750,000.
I can't believe they got Roxanne versus Macy Barber. That's like kind of Roxanne's an OG, but I think Macy's already stepped up to a point where they'll, give her some real competition. Because I don't know, man. This is no bueno.
Yeah, this is not a good card, and that's on the prelims. That's the free stuff.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's disappointing at the very end of Optimistic. It is still disappointing. There's literally one fight that I care about on this card.
The only fight.
It is the only fight. I'm not even excited for Holly Holm versus Raquel Pennington. Because we know, or we're heavily speculated, that it's Holly Holm's last fight.
Yeah.
Right? So then it doesn't matter to me if she wins, because then it doesn't move the division along.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just checking to see how many fights she has left on her contract.
Oh my God. I don't think this card sells more than 750,000 pay-per-views. They don't even announce it anymore. You know that, right? You know, every once in a while they used to put out a presser, or it used to get leaked on how many pay-per-views it sold. They don't announce the pay-per-view sales anymore. They're so bad.
Not prior to the fight.
No, not after. They don't announce them at all anymore.
Yeah, they do. Dana announces on the post-fight.
Not pay-per-views.
Pay-per-views, he does.
No, he doesn't. I'm telling you, man. I've looked into this. He announces gate and attendance. That's what he announces. He doesn't do pay-per-views anymore.
What was the last card?
245.
Let's see.
UFC 245 pay-per-view buys.
Let's see. Are you going to pick up my audio if I play something?
As long as it doesn't play through your headset into your mic. So, but the last one that was officially announced was before the ESPN era. They don't have to announce him anymore. They signed an exclusive deal.
Oh, you're right. They did not announce it.
Yeah. I know, Steve.
You're right.
Because
I have faith in Dana. I shouldn't. He owes me $20
from back in the day. But
back in the day before Whitey chased him out of Boston.
This does not sell more than 250,000 or more than 500,000 pay-per-views, I don't think.
Holly Holmes inked a 6-fight contract deal with them on March 21st, 2019.
2019?
Yeah.
But she doesn't have to finish that contract.
No, she doesn't, but she wouldn't be able to pursue... Well, she can pursue boxing.
Boxing, kickboxing,
the
like. But even so, it's no
I wish
fight.
we wouldn't talk about this shit, because now I'm pissed that I'm possibly spending upwardly towards $70-odd on this nonsense.
Maybe even $70 even. We're not sure. None of the fights on this card do anything for me. Even the Conor Cowboy fight. I've talked about it, but I have not actually gotten excited about it. That's why if it ends up snowing tomorrow, I don't care if I miss the fight or not.
Yeah.
Right. If it snows tomorrow and I miss the fight, it just means more Tarkov for me. That'll bring me more enjoyment than watching Cowboy and Conor.
That's a good point. Let's get on to some serious shit.
Let's get on to something else, big guy. I'm over the UFC talk. I've missed the UFC and I'm glad fights are back, but this is not the kind of fight card that I wanted.
So what do we got here?
Let's go. Star Wars crossed the $1 billion mark.
Yes.
We knew it was going to. We looked at this last week. It was at 984 million or something. We knew it was going to. It's Star Wars. It's the end of the Skywalker saga or series, whatever you want to call it. It's a monumental movie in the series, but the real important question is, will the next one break $1 billion?
At this point, since Disney started printing their own money and they swapped out George Washington for Mickey's face, next movie, if it's what I think it is and what they're saying it is, so let's say Jon Favreau, who just wrote and directed most of the Mandalorian and co with what's this guy's name from the Clone Wars? Dave Filoni.
Yeah, oh, dude, you're going way too nerdy for me, and I like it.
I think that if the rumors are true, they'll hand the franchise over to him, right? So Kevin Feige's up next to produce the next Star Wars film. Kevin Feige being the man that took the MCU from nothing to something.
I know who Feige is. I've heard you say this name about 1 million times. I also heard him mentioned recently on a podcast, but okay.
Yeah, so, Mandalorian did well. And it sounds like they're going to do Knights of the Old Republic or the Old Republic in itself.
Okay.
And also a few standalone films similar to Rogue One and that stuff.
Okay.
So yes, I think the next big franchise film will cross $1 billion. Here's the thing, right? So this is the debate now, Zach. Get ready to fall asleep. Zach is literally going to peel his eyes out for the next, 65 seconds.
Go ahead. Make it faster.
Who was right in this great debate?
Of what? What are the opposing questions?
The opposing questions are: did Disney ruin the Star Wars brand?
That's a good Freudian slip.
Or did they succeed? Right? The numbers say that they succeeded.
Sure.
The fans say, possibly a minority group, judging by these numbers, that they didn't succeed. A lot of people felt like there were too many things going on, too many other messages being pushed. There was a huge, very strong reaction to Rey being the lead character, Rey being a female. They felt like some agenda was being handed off. And in certain instances, I could see where they got that. Then they, Kathleen Kennedy, the woman who's the executive producer of the Star Wars franchise, the new 3, she's put her foot in her mouth a few times, and they decanonized the legends. These are the books that take place after, A New Hope, Return of the Empire, and The Empire Strikes Back, and whatever that last one, The Return of the Jedi. So a lot of fans are angry that they didn't go with the expanded universe stuff, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff, but then there are people who are like, I like this new Star Wars. I like what they did. I like Rey. I like that they didn't harp too hard on the Skywalker saga, and they said we need to usher in something new. I've been scouring the internet, just looking at the Twitter trolls and how they go back and forth with each other. But I'm going to have to say that the only winner in this situation is Disney, because
Correct.
they're marketing geniuses. Like, they got people going against each other, as they usually do in these situations, and people would go see the movie. Even if they wanted it to flop, you still went to go see it.
I did.
And
Don't say I did.
No, you didn't come because you had to work the next day. I went to go see it. And within the 2-hour mark, I was like, man, I got to be to work at 7. This was a horrible move on my part. Like, I'll never get this time back.
Yeah.
But it made $1 billion. Respect to those young actors for getting paid. And they did it again, man. Disney wins again, bro.
So you asked if this was a success, right? The question is does sales make it a success, or does viewer satisfaction make it a success, right? That's the
fandom response make it a success.
That's the point of the questioning, right?
Right.
The answer to that question is Hollywood, production, film, whatever greater story arc here that you wanna call, is based on a business. And if the business side of it succeeds, I don't care if everyone in the world universally hates it, but it sells $1 billion on what, a $50 million budget, $150 million budget. I don't know what the budget was, right? If it makes, say it was a $250 million budget, if it makes 4x profit,
yep,
that is the most successful thing you could do as a business, other than make a second Avengers. And that is why it's a success.
Yeah, that is literally, said short, what I'm saying. Like, did fandom win or did the business model win? But
business model always wins.
There are some niche fans who really enjoyed this new. I mean, like, obviously the numbers don't agree with me here, but I mean, they are such a small group when it comes to Twitter outrage. Like, there are people who really enjoyed this movie. I have not met any of them yet, but I've heard them on YouTube and they've enjoyed it. And I'm like, okay, you got to respect that if you enjoyed it. But it did cross the $1 billion mark. And we did, was it last episode or 2 episodes prior when we were going through Disney's $1 billion successes?
I think it was the last episode, because we talked about Collider videos.
How many $1 billion franchises does Disney have at this point?
All of them.
Like,
the answer is all of them. Because they own Avatar too?
Yes.
So they literally own all of them.
The only other studio that's putting out $1 billion franchises, believe it or not, is Universal. And you know what properties those are for?
DC?
The Jurassic movies.
They don't own Jurassic Park?
Who, Marvel?
No, Disney.
No, they don't own that. That's a Universal property. Universal. And Universal also, I believe, they produce and own the rights to the Fast and Furious franchise. And then DC does have a couple of $1 billion properties, believe it or not, Aquaman and Wonder Woman. And Joker.
And Batman.
No.
The Dark Knight series did billions.
Yeah,
those are great movies.
Those are
the movies that those movies are why Marvel is so successful. Because those movies got people back into superhero movies. Prove me wrong.
Absolutely wrong.
Prove me wrong.
Absolutely wrong. That's not even considered a superhero movie.
Prove me wrong.
Prove you wrong? You want me to prove your opinion wrong?
Yeah, prove me wrong as to why.
Wait, first
the hype around the Dark Knight series didn't repopularize comic book movies in general.
First, I'd have to ask you to prove yourself right, because that's just conjecture on your part. Because I can name a few other properties that actually kept comic book movies in the limelight. Do you know what those movies are? Believe it or not, it's that shitty XMen franchise.
So the Dark Knight trilogy is 2005, 2008, 2012. When did the first Iron Man come out? 2008. If
here we go,
Batman Begins didn't sell.
Before you begin, bro, just look up when the X-Men movies came out.
Yeah, but the X-Men movies weren't successful.
Yeah, they were. 2 was universally loved. The first one was okay. 2 was well received. The third one, X-Men United, not well received. First Class, well received.
I'm trying to see numbers here because I see when they came out. Okay, here. X-Men 2000, X-Men 2 2003, X-Men 2006. Sold total $1.5 billion.
Yeah.
Nothing to scoff at, right? Nothing to scoff at.
But your statement is that if it wasn't for The Dark Knight, without any data, you're saying that the Dark Knight series, the trilogy,
correct,
3 being the worst one of all.
I didn't even see the third one, to be fair.
You didn't see the third one? How are we having this conversation then?
Because if Batman Begins didn't sell $700 million by itself, then Disney has no reason. Or Eddie was Marvel even owned by Disney at the time of Iron Man 1? Didn't they acquire them after?
They acquired it after.
So Marvel would not have had reason to pump money into an Avengers. Right, I'm going to call it an Avengers series, right? Because technically, from 1 to Endgame, right? Iron Man 1 to Endgame is the Avengers saga.
I'm going to take a few deep breaths here. Right? Because I'm not sure if you're trying to troll me right now, but I'm going to remember that we're friends and I'm not going to go Collider on you.
Anyway, there would be no reason for it. These movies had so much hype around it. I'm talking about purely what made superhero movies acceptable again. Batman Begins and The Dark Knight are the 2 movies.
So Batman Begins and The Dark Knight for DC made Batman's character relevant on the cinematic screen again. I would agree with that. I would agree that it helped, but it wasn't the only reason. Actually, the only thing holding Marvel's properties together was the hope in the Iron Man film. That's the bottom line.
How much did Iron Man 1 make? I'll look that up. You keep talking.
I don't think it crossed $1 billion, but it did so well that we're talking about 2 different types of film, essentially. Like if you go back and watch the Nolan versions of Batman versus the Marvel, we're talking about night and day.
Did $585 million.
We're talking about night and day storytelling, cinematography. I would agree that it helped. It is not the sole reason. What actually helped were fans willing to go out and support Marvel in this. And that's the bottom line. People wanted to see Marvel represented correctly in movies for a long time. Now, what really helped was that Kevin Feige used to be a side producer on most of those older films for the X-Men and stuff like that. So he was able to come in and go.
Produced Iron Man, too. He's been involved with it since the beginning.
Dude, that guy was getting people coffee. And look where he is now. That's why I say don't shit on your intern.
But right? He's not the reason why.
Oh, he is 100%.
Maybe cinematically 100%. Why the movies are so successful, but he's not the reason why there was so much hype around him.
Dude, I'm telling you right now.
You're the only person in America who knows who Kevin Feige is.
Zach, I want you to turn around, grab your air compression gun, aim it in your nose, and pull the trigger. Kevin Feige is the godfather, and he is the driving force behind Marvel. In fact, he might be the only reason that the comic books are still afloat at this point, too.
Anyway, without Batman, Marvel would have succeeded.
That's a perfect segue into the way people handled themselves at the debates. Yes.
They just don't make any sense. But
you know what I like about the debates, right? Because there's always that moment when I know a person wants to have that type of comment that you just made, which is, you know what, dude? Your mom wears combat boots, and they just give up on reason and just
your mom goes to college. No.
Good reference.
So no, but seriously though, the hype that were around those movies is not.
You're saying it's the sole reason.
It is the sole reason.
Right.
Superhero movies were accepted in general population again. They were a niche market.
Who?
By normal people. They were
people.
Right, the general population. They were a niche market before. They were a niche market.
It helped. If I was a market analyst and I'm looking at this, I say it helps.
I am a market analyst. At least I play one on the internet.
I was gonna say you show me that credit right
now. Well, sir, I have it here written on a napkin. Marketing list.
I would agree. I would agree that the first two movies, and in fact, I did not dislike the third Batman movie.
Didn't even watch it. Couldn't care. I didn't care any less.
I thought it was pretty interesting. It was an interesting adaptation of that whole Bane story. But I will say this, right, in regards to where DC's at with their properties now. If everything's true, from what I'm hearing about the next property to come out, the next LP, which is Black Adam with The Rock, that's going to be their next billion-dollar franchise.
Black Adam?
That's going to be
because of The Rock, though.
Well, man, listen, don't give that man any props, because if we go through his resume, he's made some horrible movies. Jumanji is doing okay.
Apparently, Jumanji is really good.
The second one?
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
People love it. But I think Black Adam is going to be their next billion-dollar property. I'm calling it. And I think that they could actually go back in time and kind of look at the Nolan situation and maybe bring back some of those peripheral team members to help them make decisions, because they had a win with Joker. Now we got Birds of Prey, the Harley Quinn movie coming out. We'll see if lightning can strike twice, essentially.
Jumanji's on its way to this is Jumanji 1, did almost $1 billion from 2017.
Yeah. Did you see the first
movie?
No,
I didn't see either one. I have no reason to.
It's a cute film. It's cute.
I don't have children. I don't have reason to see them.
It's not a kid's movie.
Jumanji? Yeah. It's about a board game, dude.
No, it's not about a board game. It's about a video game. It's about a board game that became a video game.
Oh, it's about the one with the fucking
Robin Williams.
Thank you. It was about a board game.
That's a kid's movie. This one
that I've seen. I have never seen any of the other garbage ones.
Have you ever seen Death to Smoochie?
No.
It's the single greatest Robin Williams movie ever made.
I'm not a huge fan of Robin Williams.
Do you like Edward Norton?
Yeah, I could deal with Edward Norton.
It's the single greatest Edward Norton movie ever made.
Okay, well, I'm willing to watch this now. Man, The Rock has made some really, really shitty movies.
Yeah, but his contract is amazing.
Dude, he makes so much money.
It's outrageous. His dad just passed away, by the way.
Yeah, it's Rocky Johnson passed away very recently, within the last 2 days.
It's going to be their next billion-dollar franchise. But Disney's got what? Can you give me the numbers again real quick since you have it up? How many billion-dollar?
I don't have that up. Can you keep talking so we don't have dead air, man? You know, Steve, for as many podcasts we've done, and how many have we done so far, Steve? Answer the question, please. Thank you.
14.
14. You haven't gotten the whole dead air thing yet. That's all right. That's all right. You're getting there, dude. You're getting there. I can see an improvement in the person that you were from the first one to the person you are now, and I can appreciate that.
Zach, you know that I'm the best thing that's ever happened to you in this life.
That is not true.
Who you were before I came into your life was a man on his way to being on the FBI's most wanted list for some array of horrible crimes. Now I've kept you safe. Remember, our running gag when we first started hanging out was, I'm clearly been hired by your parents to make sure you don't shoot.
That was your running gag. I had never.
You were into it. You'd come to me. You'd be like, "Hey, man. So if you were doing a psych eval on me, what would it say?" And I'm like,
I never asked you that once.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. I could have. I did not care any less. I still don't.
Yep. See, you're doing that thing again. That's in your notes. This is our second session. There's no need for this. Let the love in, Zach. Let the love in. I'm trying to think of what other properties, comic book movies that have had billion-dollar successes. None.
So let's see. There's 46.
46.
Yeah, one. Yeah, most of them are Disney, dude. Most of them are Disney. Even freaking Zootopia made $1 billion. How is it even possible?
Dude, how do you not greenlit everything coming your way from Disney? Like, it's gonna be money.
Right? Like, have you ever seen the episode of South Park where the joke is that Netflix greenlights everything? And they call in and are like, "Hey, we have this TV show, greenlit, boom!" There's just a guy on the other end, like on the phone, just like greenlit. And that's Disney right now. That's Disney. Oh, Avatar's owned by Fox, which is owned by Disney. Son of a bitch. So technically, if you really want to, like, Titanic is owned by Fox. Star Wars, Fox or Disney. Oh man. All of them. Jurassic World is Universal.
The good thing is Disney can't buy any more like big studios.
Oh no, hold on. Yes, they can, but they could do it under a subsidiary.
I don't know if the monopoly laws would allow them to do that. You're potentially saying that they would get away with it because they're doing it under a subsidiary, and I don't think they can.
I think they can. I'd be willing to bet that.
Zach, you are the king of conjecture presented this fact. Data?
You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy about this, right?
What?
I know business really well.
You do know business
right?
really
so
well.
I can pull some things over on you because of that, because you have faith.
No, that's not it. What it is you do know business very well, and you can pull things over on most people. But I'll always be in the background shaking my head like this, like I can't believe.
Did they actually fall for that? Is Pixar owned by Disney too?
Yes. Right?
Holy shit. Yeah.
Dude, so I gotta ask you about this question. What is it like being a dad in 2020, having grown up in an entirely different era?
That wasn't a take on you being old.
No,
right?
I know it wasn't.
That is a take on the fact that when you were a kid 60 years ago, the world was so significantly different.
Yeah, we believe the Jetsons.
Than what it... Yeah, that's true. Jetsons were hyped, though. Than what it is now. Even, like, me growing up in the early 2000s is so significantly different than how the world is now.
Right.
What is it like? Because when you grew up, it was, go outside and play, and when it gets dark, come back inside, right? Because that's kind of how...
we were at the tail end of that type of stuff.
But that's how it was for me.
Okay.
So that's how it was for me. Like, how do you can't do that with kids now, I don't think, right? Like, I'm not a parent, clearly. Right. I'm not a parent. I barely can parent myself. That's kind of where I was going with this. I want to know what it's like, because the era that you grew up in, and even to some extent the era that I grew up in, was so much more social interaction, being with people, being, I would say being outside, but I don't mean being outside. I mean, like, literally going and doing things with people, like personal interactions, where now it's so non-personal that it would be I think it would be hard to raise a kid and from here going forward.
Well, I mean, it's difficult raising a child in general because you don't want to project too many things on him from yesteryear and how things used to be, which I am actually very guilty of. I'm always like, well, this is the way that a boy should be raised, and this is the thing that you should teach your sons, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the clear difference is the amount of information that they're inundated with and how that forces them to grow up just a little bit faster. I was talking to my 5-year-old just a few moments before I came down here, and I realized he was talking to me as if we were kind of equals. He's like,
how fast did you shut that down as part of your ego?
Well, he was going to sleep. So this is the time where you want to listen to him, because you don't want him to stay up debating. So I just want to hear what he is, and you have to listen to your kids, right? Because it's when you don't listen to them is when they tell you something you really needed to hear. And he's telling me why he doesn't like school. It's pretty normal for a kid not to like school, but I was like, okay, what's going on, buddy? He's like, well, basically what it is, and I'm listening to the cadence in his voice, and he's like, I made a painting, and my teacher said she didn't like it, so yeah, I don't want to go back to school. And I'm listening to how mature. He didn't say it because his teacher doesn't like him, or even he doesn't like his teacher. He's like, yeah, she didn't like my work, man. And just imagine an adult saying that, she doesn't like the quality of my work. So I don't think I'll be going back to that office. It's basically what he said to me. And that's the hardest part, because a part of me wants to be like, shut up, go to bed, you're going to school. But it's like, all right, you got to listen to them. And I think that's something more that's come with this era of raising kids. You have to listen to your kids. Just think about the stuff you say to your parents and how much they actually listen to you. Do you ever get that feeling they were actually listening when you were telling them stuff like that?
Never once. Never once. There was a disconnect for sure.
When I would tell my mom stuff, she would listen, but she had that same look that I often give you when you're just throwing out pseudo facts, and I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Very interesting.
So here's what's going to happen. I think the next thing is also what you touched on is it's a lot more dangerous, right? I don't know if it's actually more dangerous, but I think the numbers would support me on this. We're definitely seeing an increase in child abduction steadily from my generation into a current, right? And the coverage on that is more prevalent. And now we're starting to worry about things more like sex trafficking, things that probably existed for a great deal of time, but you worry about it now more than ever because not only has the ability for them to pick up information, your kids, that being on the internet, but now the predators have access to more information, right? Like they can now track your kid up until the point of his or her last Facebook post. So that's something you really worry about is like, where can they be a child at? We take our kids to a place called BB's. I'm not going to say it out loud just for that exact reason.
It's a franchise. It's a chain of things. I understand, but okay.
Yeah. And there was an instance where I'm with my son and another little kid is like, hey, come with me. Not like, hey, let's go run with each other. He was like, hey, come with me, follow me. And I remember I had to grab my son and be like, no, you don't run off with strange kids.
That's fair.
But that's something I used to do all the time.
Yeah.
Like I would just go hang out with a random kid for hours on end.
Done it.
And then, and then.
Absolutely. So you're caught up in this. We're going to talk about child abduction, right? And I have a Washington Post story from 2015 in front of me with some statistics. You get caught up and I'm not saying you, but I'm saying people get caught up in this idea of just because things are reported more, it must mean they're more prevalent, right? I could say back in like the 80s, you could probably attest to this. There were a lot of news stories of shark attacks on the Jersey Shore, but statistically, those go down every year. And it wasn't it wasn't an up year or an up decade. It was just what was being reported. It actually reports of missing children from 93 to 2014 are down 40%. So that has steadily gotten smaller. So
let's see here. I'm looking at reported kidnapping cases.
I'm just looking at some graphs here. I got some data in front of me.
I'm looking at the Department of Justice. I don't know if you've ever heard of them before.
The DOJ?
Yeah, those guys. They throw massive raves. And according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, citing U.S. Department of Justice records, nearly 800,000 children are posted missing each year. That's more than 2,000 a day.
It's not that many. Keep going. Sorry.
Rein it in, buddy. Pull it back in. I don't know what this acronym's for. The NCMEC says 203,000 children are kidnapped each year by family members. So it's true. It's not nearly as prevalent as you would think, seeing things on Facebook and from fake media sites. But when you actually go in and look at the amount of cases reported to the police station, we have to differentiate too. These are unresolved numbers. So we don't know if that number decreases by the amount of kids who have turned up in fortunate circumstances and or otherwise. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying.
So that's something that weighs heavily on you as a parent. Then there's just the obvious, right? You got kids vaping, they're doing the lean, they're listening to the little Wheezies, the Dreezies, and Kanye's a Republican now. There's some scary stuff your kid can be exposed to, right? Like your kid can, before the worst thing you could say to my parent, I did it, right? I came home with a red afro, and I remember the look on my mom's face like, oh Lord. Like, now there's no telling what your kid will come home and tell you. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. And to try not to sound like a hate monger or a bigot, you got to go, oh.
I love that you threw Kanye as a Republican in there. I can't get over that.
Like, try explain that to your kids. You try explaining Kanye to a small child. Like, what's wrong with him? Like, son,
well, to be honest, we're not sure. So, the world gets safer each year, but it gets more scary in other ways.
See that is an oxymoron. What you just said,
it's a cliche.
I know. The world gets safer. I think the next thing is also there's a lot of mom shaming that goes on that really wasn't prevalent before, which could have existed.
Mom shaming?
Yeah, mom shaming is a real thing, and what it is you're you have these pseudo morality police that you see on the internet and stuff, and every time a mom posts something, there's a public outcry like, "Oh, you're a horrible mother" and stuff like that. Moms are really harsh towards each other and on each other, and that's something that I don't think.
That's something I don't see. I would never even
Yeah,
know that.
yeah. So I remember one of the things when Santana first was pregnant with our first child, she would tell me that she's like, people aren't as nice as you would think they would be to a pregnant woman, and I'm like, oh, babe, you're probably being sensitive.
In person or on the internet? Where are we talking in person?
Both. And in person, I was like, I'm like, maybe you're drunk, maybe you're just, feeding, you're seeing what you want to see. And then I went out with her one day, and I was like, holy shit! Like when I was younger, when I was around 17 or so, if you seen a pregnant woman on the train in Manhattan, you get up, you give her a seat up. You know what I'm saying? Like, or you hold the door open for the pregnant woman. I didn't know that those rules didn't really apply in the greater populace anymore. And then also that translates into when you're out with your kids. Like we were in the mall one day going to our favorite restaurant, who I can't shout out. Hopefully they'll be a sponsor one day. These kids totally would have knocked my son over while we were walking. Had I not like done that dad thing where I'm like, man, I'll kill all of you. And I just realized that now. No one really people don't really cherish kids the way they used to before.
So I mean, there's also a level of disconnect there, though, right? It's because people don't have to do the interpersonal relationships anymore the way that they used to have. They used to. There isn't a level of respect there. That level of respect has gone down so far that someone will bump into a kid. Someone won't give up a seat for a clearly undeserving woman. All of the above. It's because of the information era, and that's really the idea is how do you wade those waters.
Well, it's also the you can't tread on my perspective or my worldview, right? So someone would say to me, you're imposing your worldview on me by saying I have to be respectful. And I would just say, well, let's just break down what you're saying now. And remember what group we're talking about here, Zach. If I say to a person, you should be respectful of a pregnant woman or children around, and they would respond to me, no, I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. And then I'm like, well, then your liberal sensibility that you're about to spout at me goes right out the window, because that means I don't have to honor any decision that you make based on that logic. It's a fallacy. You know what I'm saying? It's a fallacy. And that's the problem in itself, is that no one wants their personal space or liberty infringed on to say, hey, this is a standard of right. And the standard of right says that harm should be prevented from happening to any child in public, right? So if you're walking in the mall and you see a 2-year-old who is obviously a 2-year-old behaving like a 2-year-old, and he's running and he runs into you, my immediate reaction is not, oh, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? I don't freak out. I'm just like, oh man, I hope I didn't hurt this kid, because he's obviously about to fall on the ground. Same thing when I'm on a plane. Now I'm about to take personal responsibility and just say, this is just me. When I hear a crying baby on the plane, it is as annoying to me as a parent as anyone else. But what I'm not going to do is get angry, right? Because that kid has no more control over what they're going through than an old person who defecates on themselves when they're in the hospice. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't know what's going on. They're on a plane, their ears are popping. It just doesn't make sense. I don't freak out about kids in public, and this is just me, because it's like, where else are they going to be? If they're in a restaurant, maybe I should choose a different restaurant if I want to get my hipster on. Don't go to freaking Fridays expecting to be able to have a calm, collected conversation. Kids are everywhere. That's just me. I mean, that's the end of my rant. That's the biggest difference.
I've never experienced the stereotypical crying child on a plane. Every time I've ever been on a plane, there have been children, but they've also always been under control. Under control may not even be the right way. They've usually just been asleep, right? So I've never got to experience that as a passenger. I wouldn't get upset either. Like I'd be completely understanding. It would bother me, but it wouldn't bother me enough to me even be at all upset. Right? Like, wow, this is an inconvenience, but this is a slight inconvenience for me. I can't even imagine what that parent or even the child is going through, right? Because being in a strange place at the strange time in this really enclosed area where you can't do the things that you normally do as a child, That would be more traumatizing than me as an adult having to listen to a child cry.
Yeah. So I mean, and then there's a double-edged sword to that, right? So it's also very awkward for me when I see a 12-year-old girl call her mom a bitch in public at the counter.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's weird to see kids be able to get away with some of these things now that maybe were happening when I was growing up, but it was like unheard of to hear someone say that they call. I remember the first time I heard a kid say that. Oddly enough, I wasn't in the city. I was in Elgin, Illinois. And it was a kid named Keith. And he was like, "Mom, you're such a bitch." And I was like, and then I saw the strangest thing. His mom didn't snatch his soul out of his body. Like, she just said, "Oh, Keith, you know what? I'm going to get you cigarettes. Just please try not to wreck the house." And that's when I knew that not everyone was raised the same. It just dawned on me.
That's the time. You were 33 years old by the time this had happened.
Yes, it happened last week. To be honest with you. Can I answer your question, buddy? Do you understand what it's like?
No, you kind of skirted around it like a politician, but that's all right.
Well, I mean, listen. Are you going to vote for me?
I don't think I legally can vote anymore, but okay.
What else we got? Why don't you want to talk about the Democratic?
The Democratic debates were so boring, dude. They're so boring. It's everyone up there avoiding real answers other than Bernie. He'll give you an answer, but then again, it's still some ham-handed, half-sly answer because he's a politician. It's not interesting to me.
Dude, can we put a pause on this real quick? Apparently, there's hell breaking loose upstairs. I'll be right back.
We could put a pause on it. Back at it after technical difficulty. Sorry about that. Steve, go ahead.
And last thing I'm going to say about the being a parent now versus being raised by a parent. I think that in many ways, this is the thing I noticed most. I respect my parents more now, considering what they had to raise me in, versus now.
Makes sense.
Because there are a lot of things that are a lot easier too, right? We know more in regards to allergies, health conditions, mental conditions, if you're able to have your kid not be overly diagnosed, but you also just have more avenues to go, right?
Makes
more
sense.
Resources
Makes
to
sense.
look into to make sure you help raise a well-rounded child. But another thing is, I'm trying to think, man, like take for instance the mass shooting thing. Like I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, right? So
sure, that
was a reality that something could happen, but now it's just a reality to like, I don't know, not if something can happen, something's going to happen. And you almost have to be like, man, is it going to happen to my kid in their school? Right. So it's that type of stuff.
Sure.
Kids have better food nowadays, by the way.
Well, your kids do. I still have nothing.
They have better games.
Oh, the games are better. Yeah, the games you had were bullshit. The games you had may have been the worst games ever.
Dude, you don't know nothing about Bonk's Adventures, dude.
I don't care about it. Don't care about any of that garbage. You know why? Because I have Cyberpunk that's coming out in April. Wait.
When was it supposed to come out?
It's coming out in September. It got delayed till September.
Why? Reshoots?
They need to polish the game so it's better on launch, and they don't have to work so hard on a day one patch. The game can release in a state that's acceptable.
Wait, hold on for a second. Oh, I clearly didn't hear you. Did you say that the developer delayed the game so that the launch goes off without a hitch?
Correct. So this isn't just a developer, right?
Right.
This is CD Projekt Red. These are the same people that made The Witcher.
Oh, okay.
That are making Cyberpunk.
Right.
They care more about making a successful, like really well done game, than pushing something out to make the quick buck and then fix it later.
Which is essentially what a day one patch is. The day one patch should have been implemented before day one.
Right, essentially. But it got delayed. I am sad that it did get delayed. I'm actually really excited for Cyberpunk. I'm really looking for a good RPG. I think it's an RPG, but more of like an explorer city. It's a city explorer, which I am super excited about because I really love cities. And I'm looking for one to deep dive in. But that gets delayed. Gives me more time with the MMO that Amazon's going to come out with here soon. So,
which is what?
It's called New World. We talked about it. Okay. I just edited that video actually. Goes up Tuesday if you guys want to check it out. So it gives you a little more time with that once I can get my hands on it, and then I'll be able to play with Cyberpunk. I'm excited. I've really been playing nothing but Tarkov, so I'm kind of looking forward to playing some other games soon.
Is Cyberpunk going to be your like game you play alone, where you're just like, all right, this is what I'm doing?
What else am I going to do? It's not a multiplayer game.
That's a good point.
It's a single player game. What do you do with single player? Do you sit and like play it together?
But I mean, is this going to be the game where you really just get immersed into it? Like,
it could be. It could be. I haven't played the game. I can't tell you yes or no yet.
Okay,
right?
We'll see.
Ask me the week after it comes out.
So I think that's really good. It's a really good altruistic reason not to do something horrible, which is we'll release an update day one after everyone complains. Good on them, right? That's good. That's good business practice and good ways to treat your fan and your consumers. 100%. Now the question is, will any other companies follow the trend?
People do delay games, but I don't have faith in other companies the way that I do CD Projekt Red. So I mean, the Final Fantasy remake just got delayed. Yeah, it's come out in March. That got pushed back. And that's a remake of a game, by the way. That's not a new game like Cyberpunk is. They're just remaking a game. And they're supposed to be remaking it 1-to-1 with just new graphics.
Right. I thought they were redoing all the action and fight sequences as well or something.
I've never played a Final Fantasy game, so really I'm out of my turn here speaking.
I have no idea what I'm saying. I think it's good, man. Let me ask you a question. Did they ever fix all the glitches in the Red Dead Redemption for PC? Like, is it working on people's? Is it working on people's computers now?
Don't know.
Do you care?
No. Hold on. I saw something the other day. It's over on my desk. Red Dead Redemption 2, baby.
Xbox.
I found my Xbox copy, and there is a thick layer of dust on it.
rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, I played it a little bit, but I like the game. Red Dead 1 was amazing. Red Dead 2 was also really, really good, but it wasn't on PC at the right time. And by the time it did come out, it was a really bad launch, which Blizzard is known for. So the real move on a Blizzard game, when it comes out on PC, a year later, buy that game. They've had time to flesh out all the issues. They've added content to it. And now it's the game that it should have been a year ago or 2 years ago, whatever, knowing Rockstar. So that's the move. In a year, I'm excited for Red Dead. When GTA 6 is coming out, I will buy Red Dead and play that. And by the time I'm done with that, GTA 6 will be like playable.
There you go. And be ready to go.
Right. So this is more or less what kind of the way that I've decided that I'm playing Rockstar games. So is that it for tonight, Steve? Is that it?
No,
it's a good show.
We got time for. Hey, no, don't hit her. No. All right, I think that's it.
All right, Talking with the Dad, episode 14.